Audrey DeGregorio, and I did a project on collegiate mental health. So the purpose of this project was to explore the relationships between anxiety and depression in college students as related to physical health indicators. So I'm going to use logistic regression models. I'm going to do two models at the end for depression and anxiety, both binary logistic regressions. And it's important that we look at this because college students are a vulnerable population for mental health issues, and physical health can be a really good indicator of mental health issues. So the data set came from a study based on college students' mental health in relation to social media. But we're going to just be looking at some of the values, looking at depression, anxiety, and physical health. So one of the first measures used was PHQ-9. It's a standardized survey used to screen and diagnose depression. It's pretty basic. There's 9 questions, and they're scored based on not at all, several days, more than half a days, and nearly every day. And so all of these are added up together, and they're given a score to indicate depression severity. And then similarly, the G87 is pretty much the same thing for anxiety, and we did that as well. And then the physical health, so the National College Health Assessment is a semi-annual survey administered to college students, and it has a lot of different questions. Some include depression symptoms, and then general health indicators. This is mostly what I'm going to be looking at for the predictors of depression and anxiety. And these are all binary, as in if you had allergy problems within the past 12 months, for example. And then another, the Y variable or Y value will be if someone was diagnosed with depression or not for the depression models. And this is from the NCHA as well. And for the anxiety models, it's, here I'll go into EDA for that. I'll get back to that in a second. So this is a bar graph of the severity of depression based on the PHQ-9 results. And then this is the results of people diagnosed with depression in the sample. And then this is the results for the G87. And to make the binary logistic regression model, I chose to create a new variable that separated the moderate anxiety and severe anxiety from the mild and minimal, because clinically a score of greater than 10 would require clinical intervention. So it's a severe level of anxiety. So in order to kind of be similar to the official depression diagnosis, since we don't have official anxiety diagnosis, that's how I decided to do it. And then this is just, there's more females in the sample. There's a disproportionate amount of white students in the sample. Also, students that reported 2 or more races were included in the other category. And then birth year by age. So the age variable, it's important to keep in mind that when we're talking about the age variable, that it's looking at birth year. So it's going to be a little bit counterintuitive to thinking like older is higher, because older is actually the lower number. And then this is just kind of a distribution of the general health indicators. As you can see, anxiety and depression are some of the highest. And all of the other ones, well, other than allergies, are more common. It's important to keep in mind that there are not a ton of reports for certain disorders, and that could affect some of the results as well. So first of all, I made 4 different models for both depression and anxiety, but only dive deeper into the final refined model. I used the first 3 to kind of decide which physical health indicators were relevant to include in the final model. So the first one this is the first model that included physical health, which includes all of these different predictors. And we ended up finding that race, age, general health, asthma, diabetes, stress injuries, and fractures were significant, so I would later include those in the refined model. And then next, I looked at behavioral health, and I also included, so for behavioral health, I thought more about other mental health issues, like including anorexia, and anxiety disorder, yes, no, also including the GAD score because it's continuous. This is a different look at it. And then I also included sexually transmitted infections here instead of in the physical, just so it's a little bit more more even to look at. And so within this model, we found race, age, asthma, GAD score, anxiety, and depression were significant. And then for the third test model, I combined all of the predictors in here and made one giant model. And the significant variables in this were, again, race and age, the GAD7, ear infections, anxiety, and depression. So these, down here, all the significant variables in all three of these models I used in the final refined model. And so here are the odd ratios for these, and in this model we found that all categories of race were significantly less likely to be diagnosed with depression than the reference group of white students. And then for students that were older were actually slightly more likely to be diagnosed with depression. And then high GAD scores were more likely, and then more anxiety were a lot more likely, and obviously depression in the last 12 months were more likely to be diagnosed as well. So for fitness and fit and adequacy scores, we see that the model is a good fit, or pseudo R squared is greater than 0.4 at 0.51. So all of these values indicate that it's a good fit for the model. And the accuracy is pretty high as well as the sensitivity and specificity. And here is our RC curve. I'm going to jump through anxiety for a little bit because it's very similar, but I'm almost out of time, so I wanted to go through. So really similarly, I did the same type of thing with sex, race, high cholesterol, diabetes, chronic fatigue syndrome, and general health being significant for anxiety. And then race, PHQ-9, depression, anxiety, and chlamydia prevalent for behavioral health. And then in the combined, race, general health, PHQ-9, depression, anxiety, high cholesterol, diabetes, ear infection, and endometriosis. So we have all of those in our refined model. And we only had race, Asian, Black, and Hispanic, not other, being less significant than white students for anxiety. And then higher PHQ-9 scores are associated with higher anxiety. And people with poor general health were more likely as well. And then I'll get to some of the other things as well. So again, this model had good predictability for levels of anxiety. And then back to just the overall research questions from the beginning. I guess I didn't even actually read them out loud, but they were on the screen. Which health issues are related to depression and anxiety? We found in the
Thirty seconds.
Oh,
Finish it.
So didn't find any significant health issues in relation to depression, which was interesting. For anxiety, we found a couple different ones, cholesterol and ear infections, which was interesting. But some of the, we may not have found as many results as I would have liked to because there was such a small reports for all of these physical health issues. The sample was 509, but they were also college students, so some of these more specific health issues might not be as prevalent in a smaller sample like that when those college students are pretty healthy. And then second are mental and physical health problems, consistency problems, sex, race, and age. The only one that was consistently different for both was race. Age and sex were not significantly different for anxiety, but people that were older were slightly, had a slightly higher probability of being diagnosed with depression.